Hello and welcome to Align With Me podcast with your host Estefanía, where I invite my friends to have incredible conscious conversations to just help to expand in whatever way, shape, or form. Today, I have a very close friend of mine, Nicky.
Bechka has
Beshka.
Hey. No worries.
From my introduction of Nick, one is one of the people that I can come and have deep conversations with, and we can go into outer space, come back, travel this space, go to the next one.
Yeah.
But beyond that, Nick has been on his yogic journey. Oh my God, DJing, model at some point. I'm sure still. And just all of these different things that have created Nick's avatar.
Yeah.
And then I have brought you to this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to let you give yourself a little introduction yourself.
So, thank you for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure. I love jumping on camera and sharing because, we all have, I would say, a lot of insight, especially when we're, connecting to our truth, when we tap into our own spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. So that could look different. I mean, actually, it looks different for each and every person. So, so for me, it was kind of like, growing up in a household where it was a lot of sports, a lot of physical activity, a lot of grounding on earth, a lot of walking barefoot, being on the beach, being just, active and healthy in that sense, So,
and your dad was an athlete.
Yeah, my dad was an Olympian, so naturally we were bred as, athletes.
Sport athletes,
which is amazing, we have to really use our physicality in a way that allows us to, because the body is this natural intelligence. So when you start moving your body and playing sports and grounding, then your body really comes to life.
And it's moving the energy.
Yeah, it's moving the energy. So that was a great upbringing for me. And then, like you mentioned, I got into modeling, and then modeling is such a superficial world for the most part. And the best thing that happened to me...
It gives you it almost expands you because of the resistance you're like, wait, this can't be it. And it expands you out of that, but it doesn't expand everybody.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I got into that world, I went to New York, Milan, all these places. To cut to the chase was I met my first spiritual teacher in the modeling world. Okay. So it was amazing. It was I'm in this superficial world where everyone has a lot of self-esteem issues. Everyone's beautiful, but then there's all these people that don't feel good about the way they look.
It's funny because I relate in the essence of, I was a photographer that would do runway, and I went to Milan, I went to Barcelona for Fashion Week, and it's you're amongst these people that they want so many pictures, and you want, but you have to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And so deep down inside, you're like, but do you really love yourself? And
if you don't fit into the idealism of what a model should look like, and then there's everyone comparing themselves to others, on a physical standpoint. So it was great because I experienced that, but then I experienced my first spiritual teacher. And
so that kind of goes into my first question,
yeah,
which is, what was one of the first experiences, if you could give me a story, as to what it would be, what kind of catapulted you into the beginning of what we could say your awakening?
Yeah, so I know for sure. So my one friend that was my first spiritual teacher, he was a model, and he was younger than me, and he was very successful. And so one day we were at his house, and I was sitting on the couch. he was in the kitchen, but I could see him in the kitchen, and he was making tea.
Okay.
We weren't high on any substances or anything. You know,
It's not one of those awakenings.
not on psychedelics or anything. Just casually, you know, chilling at the house. So he was making tea. So he was boiling, you know, the tea kettle on the stovetop, which was one of those.
Where was this?
It was here in South Beach in Miami.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so all of a sudden I was looking at him, and he raised his hand towards the tea kettle like this, and he was just like doing this, you know. So I stood up and I started walking towards him, and then right when I ended up standing right next to him, he literally moved the tea kettle from one burner, the back burner, to the back burner on the left. So he, without touching it from a distance of 5 feet, literally moved the tea kettle like this. So when he moved it, there's those, you know, heating elements that heat up the burners. So he moved it to the left side, but it wasn't completely on the burner. So he had put his hand down already, and then he was like, oh, and then he put it back on. So it was completely on the, you know what I mean? Because like when he moved it, it wasn't on the burner completely. He moved the tea kettle several times back and forth.
Okay.
And then after that, we looked at each other and we just were like, and then I was like, have you ever done that? And he's like, I've never done that before.
Oh, he had never done that before?
So it was like mind-blowing experience for both of us, because we both were like surprised.
Of course, because that's a moment where you're like, it's almost like when you see the impossible becoming, and it's in front of you, and you're like, okay, you can only, it's an experience.
Yeah.
I've been reading the Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And it talks about the realizations versus miracles, it's not realizations. It's like the aha moments.
Yeah, exactly.
When something like really happens, and miracles,
like epiphany or something. Yeah.
And miracles is an expression of love. It's like what we are. But when you have a realization, it's an experience.
Yeah.
And the experience is so, oh my gosh, that it shifts everything. And that's like the beginning of like the awakening process. Because there's no, you can't experience, it was expressing like you can't experience miracle because you are a miracle.
Yeah.
You are love. You are, and so when you're tapping into love, you're tapping into the deepest part. But when you're having an experience, it's an extreme movement of consciousness.
Beyond like what you thought was possible, you know. And people say like seeing is believing, and like we always have to remember we don't really see not even a you know, I don't know, we barely detect anything because there's so many,
not even a tenth.
There's so many subtle energies that we're not aware of. So like that allowed me to see something so powerful, and it quickly changed my perspective on anything. Like it, and still to this day, I've never seen anyone do that.
No.
You know, so that was, you know, and then I understand, you know, that was really meant for me, because when I tell people that, no one has really seen that. So I'm just like, all right.
So, okay,
you know?
when that experience happened, what was the beginning of like your domino effect in consciousness and shift in the way that you were seeing things? Did your friends change? What was like the first things that started to happen? Did you feel alone? Did you feel isolated? How old were you?
I was like 23, 24, you know.
Okay.
He was maybe like 21.
Okay.
So, you know, it kind of blew my mind, but I was still in, you know, I didn't really go directly into the spiritual journey. I just went into the matrix, but also understanding that there's something more, you know. So I did go into the matrix, you know, and just, I'm not afraid to try so many different things in life, and we have our own free will. So, we have to destroy the concept of what we think is right in society and culture that we're trying to fit into what people do normally and like all these things. So like I just did my own thing, you know what I mean? And that led me to a lot of delusions, you know what I mean? Like going crazy.
You start kind of questioning everything else.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well, if this is possible, what else is possible? Like how can...
If suffering is possible, like, you know what I mean? Or if, like, seeing magic is possible, because everything, we just need the first-hand experience. Like, I'm a big, people say don't do this or that, but, like, I like having my own experience, and then I gain awareness through what I'm doing, Exactly. So I went into the shadows, I went into my light, I went into this, I went into that. I've tried so many things in life.
Now, at what point did you start entering the, like, yoga world?
The yoga world, luckily I had, like, amazing teachers around me that were, like, my family, like, family friends. So they were just, like, drop in,
Yeah.
But then I was kind of like, nah, whatever, And then I kind of did yoga as a more of a body...
stretch,
activation, but then as I would say just went into like a period of like suffering and a lot of pain and doing things, whatever I experienced, it caused me to suffer because I was out of alignment, with who I truly am. But again,
nothing is linear.
Yeah, you're not gonna figure out like who you are until you try all these different things, and that's why I always encourage people. If it's right, even though I might tell you this might lead to this outcome because I've done this, but everyone has to do their thing, and so whatever I did made me gain a lot of insight. Like, okay, I cannot keep doing these things over and over. That's making me suffer. So then I realized, okay, how am I going to transform myself? And I realized yoga is a technology and a tool that I need. It's just a tool, and it made me...
And it's based off of geometry.
Yeah.
Like every yogic practice, it's creating geometry patterns with the body, which is allowing us to be in more alignment with the universe.
Yeah.
Because even if you do like any of these medicines, even if you do like 5 grams of mushrooms, you start to see the geometric patterns that start to form. And if we can create different positions that are going to be in alignment with that, you're naturally going to start being more in tuned and aligned with yourself and the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're the universe experiencing itself. So,
exactly.
Again, I always... want people to understand is like your body is like so intelligently designed. It's like the perfect tool. It's like, because we're experiencing life as a human right now in this moment as spiritual beings. I'm experiencing human nature. So this body was created so sophisticatedly, like with so much sophistication. Everything that was designed by God has so much sophistication. It's like perfect. The problem is like we don't really know how to use our mind properly. We don't know how to use our body. So yoga is like a way of like understanding how to utilize what you have available to you to your advantage, so you can, propel through life.
It's like they put you in, I mean, always depending what yoga, but like you're put in really difficult positions for sometimes very long periods of time, which then what your main goal is to keep relaxing the mind and to keep focusing on your breath, so that you can stay in that position, or you can keep going into that, whatever, the salutations, whatever it is. It's like you're being empowered to relax the mind and to keep going, and in anything in life.
I always say that too, is like relaxation is the biggest thing, because again, who's winding my, like when people say I'm wound up, like that you wound yourself up. You know what I mean? So like I can relax myself. So again, we have to own every experience that I'm creating in my own mind and in my body. And I have to own my thoughts and my emotions and all these things. So all those things are my responsibility. So it's your responsibility to be cool, calm, and collected and be relaxed. So your body, it should operate in homeostasis if you're relaxed. Your heart should work the way it should. Every organ, every cell, everything. Of course, there's people that are born with certain mutations and all these things, but generally everyone's born with a perfect body, even though we have genetics and all these things. But now we understand epigenetics. So like, Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's bringing so much truth to the table. It's like he's just saying, if you live in a deeply relaxed state or in elevated emotions, then your cells and your body will work perfectly. You know what I mean? But he always.
But it's that practice. It's the practice of bringing the wave. Like, we are so deep sometimes in like a high alpha, right?
Yeah.
A high alpha, and it's delta, right? Deep sleep delta.
Yeah.
Theta is that state right before falling asleep. It's also the meditative state. Then we have 3 levels of alpha. The first alpha is like kind of like a focus, doing the dishes, doing laundry, anything that's kind of like on auto.
Yeah.
Then you have mid alpha, which is more like driving a car. You're aware, but you're focused, and you can go into just kind of this like just go. And then the higher alpha is like, say like a server at a restaurant, and they're focused and they're going and they're making things, But if you are constantly in a very high alpha, almost going into beta, and beta, you can look at it as also anger. Yeah. Right? It's like you're It's
like an intense. It's like tension, you know what I mean?
And if you live in a high alpha beta and you're never bringing your state down to a conscious thetic. Yeah. It's going to be so hard to relax in moments where you really want to.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is people think they're resting a lot of times when they go to sleep, but if you're full of fears and phobias, and you have a lot of stress and anxiety, those are going to be projected into your sleep. So so that's the point, is like, even if you think you're really resting when you're sleeping, if you don't do meditation and breath work and do like practices that help you clear your mind of these lower vibrational energies, then even when you think you're sleeping, you're not going to really rest.
No, so it's like, I've been next to someone that has a very stressful life, and then you're next to them when they're sleeping.
They don't sleep well.
They scream in their sleep. And then you're like, you're screaming. Are you okay? And you're like it's hard because it's real, and that's why it's so important that the last thought that you have is to like more aligned and more relaxed and more positive right before you go into REM and sleep.
Yeah, modern science is validating a lot of this now, which is great, because a lot of people.
If I don't see it, I don't believe it.
Yeah, they don't believe it, and they don't believe in something until like a modern scientist comes and says we had this study and all these things. But I always want to remind people as well, is like yoga and breath work and meditate. It's like a life science. You know what I mean? So all of those.
It all comes down to a science.
Yeah, it's a science. Like, imagine if millions of people have done the same thing for thousands of years, and we practice. So that's actually a science, figuring out what works to regulate the mind, what works to make the body, work whatever a certain way. So it's all a science, So, we can't be too caught up in modern science. I mean, modern science is groundbreaking by all means, but again, we're creating our own experiences and figuring out and feeling what we just did, what it does for us. You know what I mean? So again, it's just
and like
feeling,
going back to the experience of things. the experience is what expands consciousness. It's what's expanding you and yourself. That's just the cat, and he's just
1 second here.
He's like, but I really want to push everything off the tables right now. I guess just going back to the experiences, right? And we were talking right before we started. Yeah. And we were saying, like sometimes it really does take a medicine, aka mushrooms, ayahuasca, samadhi, bufo, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever is calling you in whatever shape or form, sometimes these very experiential.
Yeah.
Sorry, soy Latina. These experiences really do bring us in. It's kind of like a shortcut, which sometimes you're like, was I supposed to? Sometimes it's good for you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's they're valuable tools. Why? Is because again, we only see things in a limited way, and we see ourselves in a limited way, and sometimes when you're around other people, they reflect back to you the way you are. So like all those medicines are just mirrors for you. You know what I mean? It's just giving you a strong like movie about your own life and your own situation, and being like, this is who you are really, and this is what you got going on, kind of showing you a deep glimpse into your subconscious and all these things.
Do you have any story that would you like to share? Any of your medicine
Maybe all of them for the most part, all of them, when I do a deep journey, what they show me is like, more than anything, it's just like, okay, you think you're this person, and then let me show you why you're not that person yet, even though you can be that, what you envision yourself to be or what you think you are. But essentially, all these things you're still holding on to, all these energies, all these relationships, all these attachments, these are still part of you, and you need to understand they're still part of you, and you have to let them go, or you have to dissolve them, or you have to do alchemy, which is like transmuting things. And so it's just allowing yourself to see beyond your own illusions, and it's such a magical thing.
Anything else that's not, because only love is real. Anything that's fear-based, it's all just, it's an like illusion.
Ego,
And so I feel like medicines show you that everything that you've thought that you were, or the moments where you're like, no, I have resentment towards myself, I judge myself for these moments where I did these things, it almost like brings you into acceptance, because it's an illusion. Anything that's not love is an illusion. Love is the most eternal feeling, the most eternal energy. That is literally who we are.
Yeah, and that's how we were created, through that, through love.
Literally. Now, another question I had, who's the number one philosopher or teacher that you look up to? And how did you come upon their teaching? There's a lot of teachers.
There's a lot.
Maybe the first one. Like, who was the one that really brought you, like...
I would say, there's so many teachers in their own regards.
Everything brings something else. Put you on the spot.
I'll just... I really like what Sadhguru does, is because, he's like self-realized, so like a lot of people read scriptures, like I have this book right here, the Yoga Sutras, which, this is kind of like spirituality for dummies 101, where it's like, if I read these, then it's going to help me a lot, but like for example, Sadhguru, like he's a self-realized sage, you know, and that's a true mystic where, you know, where it's like I can get educated in the best university and learn all these things intellectually, but then there's the highest form of like intelligence that's like it's within you, where you're self-realized. So I really like Sadhguru in a sense where he's kind of like even though he's a yogi and he probably went through the yogic process,
of course.
but he always says is like, I don't read any of the script, like everything comes to him, you know. So I really,
through experience, your consciousness keeps expanding. Yeah,
through your own, whatever you do, your process allows you to become more and more and more and more conscious. So I really look up to him a lot, and I look up to him also is because he's truly of service and he does things to like improve the lives of millions and hundreds of millions of people and the earth. Like, so I really look up to Sadhguru. And I will say this, a lot of people talk bad about him that don't know him. Why? Is because he's part of the World Economic Forum. Okay. People like Bill Gates and all these elitists are in the World Economic Forum. People from the World Economic Forum are pushing transhumanism, microchipping brains, and all these things. So Sadhguru is one of the board members, of World Economic Forum. Why?
Really?
Why is he? We
need someone of light.
People are instantly talking trash on him. I'm like, this is a man that understands that these people are not, that are pushing a certain agenda. They're not bad per se. They're just disconnected and they're kind of sick by the way they think.
They're stuck in the illusion of fear.
They're stuck in all these like illusions. So it takes someone like as powerful as Sadhguru to walk into the door and say, I'm joining, I want to be part of this. So like he's literally with all the sharks, you know what I mean, that are pulling all the strings in the world, he's in there bringing his essence into the equation. So I really admire that man for what he does, you know, with all the things I just mentioned.
Because,
you know.
Now I guess that goes into a different question. What would you do if you were in such a high, if you were able to enter into that kind of, you know, point?
Like where you're with high profile people.
What would you do? What would you do with your power, and how would you utilize propaganda? Like, for instance, like someone was asking me, they're like, okay, well, if you could help the world with population, and sometimes, you know, population, we went down in population COVID like tremendously and very quick. So if it's not COVID and if it's not like something that's killing, but if it's a way of like trying to instill some kind of like
change or something.
How would you go about it? Like, what would you want if you could?
Well, you know, I was talking to someone the other day that has this newly formed community, and like I always see myself being able to be at the street level talking to homeless people, and then I see myself be able to walk into a room with the globalists, you know what I mean, and be inspire, you know. So the most important thing is we have to really radiate such a high vibration that we're undeniable. Like, it's hard to deny that, you know, when certain people you interact with them or you meet them, it's just like their energy is like, wow. So this is the truth. People talk a lot. There's a lot of, you know, people that talk this but then do everything behind the door. So there's a lot of shenanigans in the world, but like energy is the truth. So, you know, the way I look at it is, you know, I've done many things, is I know when I'm shining bright and I can just walk into the room and not say that much, but then people will be drawn to me. And even if they might be completely different,
Yeah.
You know, like
Mhm.
I was in this event recently, and it's a bunch of mega millionaires, and they're, you know, they like alcohol and maybe they like other substances, but then, you know, somehow I just ended up talking to all these powerful people. So you just gotta, like, people say, what's your purpose in life? In life is like embody your divine nature, embody such a high vibration. That's
But what would you, how could you, if you're talking to someone that has no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about, how could you, what are tips for that person to shift certain things in their lifestyle to keep going?
or like maybe change, you know, inspire a change, because we have to, you know, what I always help people understand is like universal laws, you know what I mean? So we're bound to universal laws. So how do we really help people understand on a deeper level? I feel like we have to understand universal laws, and we have to understand what I am, who I am, understanding that I am, you know, understanding you're not a body and you're not the brain, you know, you're an energy that's extremely potent. So there's unlimited potential. So it's just helping people understand their unlimited potential.
But what is something that someone could do that they can shift in their everyday life that could help them with being more high vibrational?
I mean, I recommend, you know, is everyone knows the external world.
Yeah.
Okay, if I am a billionaire and I have a massive amount of success in a certain way because I understood the financial markets, I understood the economy, I understand this and that and business and all these things, and I was successful. But then I only know essentially how to operate in the external world. So everyone has to understand is you have to now explore the internal world and understand that I'm going within myself to really, really be successful, being ultra conscious. That's being successful. So I would always invite people to go on a deep journey. A lot of times people are like, oh, I can't meditate. So that's why, like, to me, like, doing things like sound baths and doing things that are not so like invasive
It's
in the
almost
beginning.
like you're like doing the least, not the least, because you still have to lay there and kind of navigate the mind, and most people sometimes will shut off and just fall asleep, which is fine too, because you're still,
that's fine, yeah,
you're still working the vibrational frequency of the body.
yeah.
But it's kind of like less work, but it's still giving you results.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, you know, I always talk about this with people, like, how do we bring more people into this movement? Because, you know, we need everyone to stand together, and if people are divided, then I feel like when you have these like inner journeys, whether it's through a sound bath or doing a yoga practice or just even doing like
a shift in diet.
Yeah, shift, like fasting or whatever. But like there's many ways. Again, it's to each his own, but you know, again, when you have an inner experience, like everyone, I just want to inspire everyone to go within themselves. You know, this is the truth. Like every master in the world has gone within themselves, you know, and a lot of people, they're extremely successful, but then they're very stressed out, they have a lot of anxiety, they're overworked, you know, so
and they don't take a moment to bring themselves down.
Yeah, so what I like to do is just give people experiences where where like, wow, I would never felt so relaxed, and it's so at peace, and connect and love the love that I felt through that like journey, you know, and that's why I like doing, again, sound baths, guided meditations, stuff like that, because it really work.
Your cleanse right now, I'd love for you to talk about that, because I know that we're talking
Yeah.
about like, well, parasites, and every single person has a parasite. We all have parasites.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. But there's processes to take those out.
Yeah.
And parasites also, they alter the mind, and they can
Yeah.
also make you angry and less relaxed. And so I know you've been going through your own parasite cleanse, and
Yeah.
which like, I don't care who you are, every single person should do a parasite cleanse.
Definitely.
So if you want to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, we have to understand first is like, there's physical parasites and then there's like energy parasites. So like, I'm not talking about anyone else like being an energetic parasite. It's like your own unconscious mind and your own ego and your own shadow is the biggest parasite
it's like
that
the
there
parasite
is.
Are they're blocks. It's like,
Yeah.
what
They're like
what are
feeding.
the
They're
walls?
taking away your energy and feeding off you. Like,
Off of fear.
you know what I mean? So we have to physically, like, because the gut and the stomach has 2 times the amount of neurons than the brain.
Mm-hmm. It's
So,
literally another brain.
Yeah.
That's
So.
why your stomach hurts whenever you're near someone that you're like, or you're by someone. It's unsettling.
Yeah.
Why does your stomach hurt when you're in a situation that you shouldn't be in?
Yeah, exactly. People get like butterflies and like maybe their chest or their stomach hurts. So it's like, just by doing a cleanse. I mean, there's the parasite cleanses that I do is a very, it's an intense one because I like to get very rigid.
We're extremists.
But again, like there's doing many different types of cleanses or parasite, whatever it is, detox. But then I always encourage fasting too, is because fasting, it's gonna make so much come up. You know what I mean? Like
regeneration.
Yeah.
Too.
So like a lot of times when we're overeating, it's just we're staying really numb and we're not.
It's overstimuli.
Yeah, it's overly stimulating and there's so much dense energy and like. The whole point in life is like refining our energies so we can tap into more subtle things, like extrasensory perception. We have our 5 main senses, but then what's the 6th sense? Feeling. If you're constantly sugar coated and constantly eating food and you have parasites feeding off you, you're not going to be able to feel much.
No.
And then also if you're watching all these things that fill your mind with intense
Fear.
energies and news and you have a right to set your eyes and watch anything you want, but all those things.
Be aware it's programming.
Yeah, be aware of all the dense energies that's coming into you because your body takes tabs on everything that you experience. So when we start cleansing and purifying ourselves and going through these fasts or these detoxes, then all these energies will be purged out. And there are withdrawal symptoms and they're of like, people, imagine people when they don't eat for a day, they're already super pissed off and angry and sassy and moody and all these things. So that's showing you.
But if you're a person that is more like cleaner, like has more cleansed aura, more of a cleansed like way of being, I can go an entire day without eating and not
get moody
not
or
get
whatever.
Moody. I'm actually more focused, and I like, and then I'm like, you know what? It's okay because your cells regenerate whenever they don't have like so much to kind of like work on because your bodies are trying. Your body is constantly trying to save your life so that you keep living. You're living the next day.
Exactly.
So then in the fasting, it's like, okay, oh my God, are we dying? No. Okay, that's fine. So let's find something in the body to work on since we don't have to think about needing to digest something right now.
Yeah.
And so then your cells start to regenerate and you literally start feeling good. But if you have a lot of stuff and you eat very heavy and there's a lot of stress, the day fast might be very intense.
Yeah, exactly.
But you can make your way to those points. And
physically there's gonna be a lot like of energies coming up, but then also like all your emotional baggage will come up too, you know. And again, and that's why, you know, it's doing a fast or a cleanse is such an amazing tool to clear your mind, you know. And again, the universal law is like, it's like the mind is all, the universe is mental. So we have to really, you know, it's like if your body is really cleaned up, then your mind is going to be cleaned up. You know what I mean? So it's, and vice versa. If you clean your mind, your body. It's, so we have to really.
Our mind is a reflection. Our body is a reflection of our mind.
Yeah, a lot of people like, you know, they're awakening up right now because there's so much information coming out about like helping me understand who I am, helping me understand all these things, but then they don't know what to do and they don't know who to connect with. But I always say in the beginning, purification is everything. You cannot say, "Oh yes, I have this potential. I've seen my higher self right now. I had a vision of my potential. I have a vision of who I could be and changing." But then how do you get there? It's like you cannot build on a shitty foundation from your past. So we gotta, again, be very diligent and say, I'm gonna purify myself and build from a clean slate. You know what I mean? From a strong foundation.
Which is like,
you know what I mean? The pillars of health, you know?
Unattaching from things. And being so, like, practicing the art of unattachment, that's a daily thing. That's a daily thing. Like, we were talking about, like, your kitties. He has 2 freaking the cutest little kittens. And you're like, you just want to keep them. But nothing is yours. We don't own anything. Nothing, like, it's not ours. So it's a daily practice to release things and let them go, and whatever is meant for you will always be for you. And then watch, like, whatever, you give these kitties to someone and then not even like a year later they're like, hey, I'm sorry, like, you think you can take them back, like, whatever is for you will always make its way back to you, but nothing is yours. Anything can just be for you in those moments.
Yeah, everything is for you, just to learn and gain awareness. And, you know, what you just said, I on my coffee table over here, I have this thing, so you can see it says self-restraint, you know? It's like, so that's what, like, you know, unattachment is like realizing I drink water every day, I eat food, I do this and that, but then there's times where maybe I shouldn't eat, or maybe I shouldn't drink water, or shouldn't eat sweets or whatever. So like,
body talks to you.
Yeah. So like, when you say, I have the ability to refrain from doing things and just move it's like you have to gain power over your own mind. You know, your mind trust. You have to really be like
trust within yourself.
Yeah, trust because again, when you start having a meditative experience and you start getting this insight and your intuition is speaking to you at that point, then it's going to tell you, listen, I need you to do these things. This is what's for you, and this is what's important, and you need to start doing it because you're not, and I'm sending you the message, and it's going to, the more you do meditation and the more then it's going to get louder and louder and louder. If you don't have practiced self-restraint because your higher self or your intuition telling you, don't do this right now, this is not for you, it was good for a while, and then you're gonna say, now I have to be very strong and say, I will restrict myself from doing these things that I gave myself permission to do, but now I have to not do it because it's holding me back and not serving me. And then that gives you willpower, and willpower is like everything, because if you have no will, then what are we doing in life? If I have a strong will, then I say I have a will to do anything. Like, that's where people become extremely successful. Willpower, you know, and self-restraint gives you willpower, because it's like, I just restrained from doing these things that is giving me more energy and power to push forward.
And like going
You know?
back, it's you when you can restrict yourself and not so much like, oh, like, you know, like this is hurting me to do this. No, it's like you're building trust in yourself that you're
Yeah.
able to say no to certain things, people, places, like that you know how to create a boundary. And any boundary that you ever form, it's a boundary that comes back to how much do you love yourself? How much do you love yourself in this way so that that doesn't happen again? And if you know, and again, like meditation, a lot of people don't want to meditate because
Yeah.
they know what they're doing wrong,
Yeah, they
and
don't
they
wanna,
know
yeah.
that their intuition, they're gonna start getting like the channel messages that are gonna come through and be like, you need a shift and you need to do this. But if you're not ready to change, meditation is gonna feel like you're sitting on a bed of needles.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
you don't want to shift. But the
Yeah.
moment that you finally have that, you know what, I really feel like it's time to change. When you start meditating, you're going to start getting clear-minded. You're going to start actually listening to that higher self, that higher
Yeah.
version that is telling you, hey, we need to cut this out. And if
Yeah.
you're ready, you're going to finally listen. And the message is
Yeah.
going to get clearer and clearer and clearer. And then you're going to be more relaxed because you're like, no, but I know the truth. I have faith and
Yeah.
I know what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, exactly. You have the vision, you know the truth, but then ultimately, you know, the trust is what you mentioned too, is like, you know, a lot of people, they want to know how everything is going to go down. Like, you know what I mean? So then that's where you have to be like, all right,
Knowing
I
is
receive,
poison. Like,
yeah,
just don't know.
I received them. I know what I have to do, but I don't know what will happen when
I don't know what the
yeah,
result
I don't
is
know
or
the way
outcome.
it's gonna look. I don't know who I'm gonna come across. I don't know the challenges that I'm gonna face.
Be unattached to
Yeah.
the outcome of what you're expecting. Like, don't expect
Yeah.
anything. Just like whatever channels through, and you're like, you know what?
This
Yeah,
is important.
this is important.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finally do this. But don't be like, okay, well, because I'm gonna do this, this is all gonna happen. No, because now you're setting yourself up for failure.
That's another ego trap,
That's
you know?
another ego trap.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it's always, you know, again, we have to like diligently observe our own mind, and that's the biggest thing. It's like it's only really me against my own mind,
And
you
you
know?
can keep doing that if
Yeah.
you keep. And I always say this: meditation is not. You don't meditate to get better at meditation. You meditate to get better at life.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that in those moments, you're like, all of a sudden in awareness, and you're like, I choose not to do this right now, and I choose not to feed this thought because I'm noticing where I'm going. And then you get better at life
Yeah.
because you're like, okay, if I feed the anger in this moment and I'm looking at the person and I'm angry, if you meditate, meditation doesn't mean you don't get angry. That's
Yeah, exactly.
bullshit. That doesn't exist.
It's a normal, you know, all these emotions are normal.
Human.
It just comes up.
It's the human experience.
And, you know, you
you
get
should
to
be grateful.
Yeah, because
Beyond this, it's only love.
yeah, emotions are just teaching you, you know, like emotions are a tool to teach you. If I'm angry, what is anger teaching me? To be more compassionate, be more loving, you know, just be accept, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's just like
But it's
they're
coming
teaching
into
us,
that awareness and having the awareness of like, okay, I'm angry.
yeah.
Okay, I'm angry. Now I have a choice. Because awareness is then you have a choice in the moments.
Yeah.
Do I keep feeding the anger, which at the end of the day is only going to hurt me more? Or do I decide to go a different path and to start feeding something else? Because I know that the anger is not actually going to help me at the end of the day. It lowers your frequency. So in
Yeah,
that
if you
moment,
act through that anger, but if you look at the anger and you say this anger is going to transform me, because you're applying consciousness to your anger, you're applying consciousness to your mind, so that's all that needs to happen. If you don't apply consciousness to anger, then you become your anger
and not react maybe in that moment that you're angry. Utilize it, feel through it, but then once you're not angry anymore, react differently.
Or respond. You know, I always remember.
Not react. Respond.
Respond differently, because that's all it is. It's like, it's a world of duality, you know, and reaction is one energy and responding is the other.
Right.
You know, so it's like, ultimately I get to choose what I want. But the thing is when we're in a storm, an emotional storm, a mental storm, okay, you see how people they get literally like shook. You know, it's like debilitating, where people they're like like they can't even breathe, and then all their body's going crazy, and cortisol is being released and all these things. So it's like, that's why, like, again, the practices are so important, because then I get to start regulating my nervous system and applying breath and energy into my system, so I can regulate my nervous system, so I can be parasympathetic. And then when all these emotional storms come up, because they are going to come up in life, then my body can handle it, because I regulated my system. So even though shit hit the fan, then essentially I am calm, because I applied a certain energy to my body that allows it to remain calm, even though things are boiling up. And that's poise, you know. So if you're poised, and mean like, day to day I do things to be relaxed. Again, getting back to that key word, relaxation. It's like, you have to program your cells to be relaxed when things come up, because things are constantly gonna come up. If you say relax, 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 when things are coming up, when anger is coming up, I tell myself, relax, calm down, chill, boom. So I am programming myself to be a certain way, because the mind will fabricate things constantly. The emotions will pour out
no matter
on
what.
On their own. They just do their thing, you know. So while those things are coming up, I apply consciousness to them and relaxation, and then we can move forward and not be all delusional and crazy. And
because it's not gonna be it doesn't work. It doesn't work in this life to be like that. You have to still be grounded no matter what.
Yeah.
But still have so many of these understandings that it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna start coming into close. What is one, I guess, if you could give someone, if you could give your 20-year-old self advice, what would be the biggest advice that you would have given yourself?
Just, I would say, destroy the concept of, like, you know, obviously there are things that are really, really, like, you know, horrific that happen in the world, and when we say this is bad, this is terrible, this is horrible, but, you know, if you're able to look at everything from a more neutral standpoint, and that's being centered, you know. We came here to experience whatever you want to call, because what's good in someone's eyes might be bad in someone else's. So it's all within context, you know what I mean?
So to stay basically like,
stay more neutrally grounded, even, you know, because then what happens is most of us get so ego driven, and our ego wants things to be a certain way. It wants things to be good the way the ego thinks things should be.
Of course,
you know what I mean? So if you, again, find more of a neutral standpoint, then you can relax your mind, and then you can, once you relax, then you jump up dimensions and into a higher consciousness. So we have to understand, what is my ego teaching me, and my shadow. It's teaching me to be more neutral instead of favoring things to be one way or another.
I only like this because it's light. I can't go
Yeah.
there because it's dark. Or like
Yeah.
being more neutral about it.
They're like, I can't be around these people, like whatever, you know what I mean? It's just like,
If I go there, like that's not a part of who I. And
yeah,
it's learning how to stay in learning how to be in duality. Like learning
Yeah.
how to be a source of light in different places, or just learning not to maybe like form too much judgment around anything.
yeah, exactly. Because if not, you know, it's easy to walk out the door and constantly reject the way people are living, reject how people are behaving, like
Judgment.
label everything, judge everything, and then you're
And
constantly
then you end up like seeing yourself higher than other people.
yeah, and then all of this nonsense is going on and all this conflict is going on in your own mind. We want to reduce that
Amount
to
of
the
conflict.
minimum, because no one is creating no one's pissing me off, no one's making me mad, it's all my own doing. So if we remain more neutral and just accept everything just as is, then naturally I'm going to be way more conscious and we be way more intelligent, because natural intelligence flows to you when you don't have a mental storm, when you're just clear and you're in harmonious state. So everyone has to minimize all that conflict and all that battle in your own mind, because you're battling, because the things with like the way you picture things to be doesn't match the way the outside world is, and that's gonna happen every single day. Every single day you interact with people, so there's always going to be that situation until you come to that truth. Yeah, and that's like 90% of the whole process is just being relaxed, and then natural intelligence comes to you. Love, it pours into your heart, and
you become more of a vibrational match for anything and anyone, and then you
Yeah.
have more empathy for people, because at the end of the day, if you're balanced, you're like, well, you know what, like it kind of is what it is, and
Yeah.
I love you and I love everyone, and it sucks sometimes when things happen, but you're like, let me stay in a neutral space, because at the end of the day, if I'm neutral and I'm working on like not having like that unbalancedness in our vibration, then we can be and exist more within anywhere.
Yeah.
Tell everyone anything that you have going on, any like, you know, like whatever, like any things in promoting, anything that you have coming up for you.
Yeah, so what I've been focusing a lot is I do microdose yoga classes now. They're way more meditative, so again,
And how people can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, Organics5D, and beyond what I just mentioned about the microdosing yoga, is we just started our new lifestyle brand. It's called Juice. So you know, Juice is essentially like, if you understand, you're just a seed that dropped down onto earth, and then boom, you came into a body, boom, then a little seedling of you as a baby and infant started growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and all the things started nourishing you, the earth and everything you experienced, and you went through so much. But then essentially, when you tap back into understanding I'm a spiritual being having the human experience, then you can start flowering and fruiting. And then the fruit is the divine. It's like I'm squeezing my juice out into the world, which is like
the divine essence.
It's just that nectar, that sweetness that blesses. So that's what we call our lifestyle brand, which there's a lot of stuff going on with it.
What is kind of the next thing, or do you guys have any dates for anything next, or what was the last thing you did?
Yeah, we're starting out more of just like having like, you know, conscious parties, pool parties out in the sun, but you know, having opening and closing ceremonies, and then we're going to be adding on a lot of activations, and then we'll be dropping our podcasts, and we're like a collective of DJs as well. So music, all these things, because people like to have fun and do like have things like where it's like kind of like, you know, entertainment and dancing, like that's
integration of every. I mean, we're souls that like to have fun.
Fun,
at the end of the day, and like I feel like sometimes in spirituality and all these things, and we know this, like it can feel so dark, it can feel so heavy because you're battling or like going through, and like if you haven't done the work, it's like you have to now start with like the traumas and kind of like release things and start, and it can feel dense, but it doesn't always have to be.
Yeah, so it's just creating like a safe space where it's not dense, it's just light, it's easy, so everyone, you know, we can hold space for each other, and then, you know, starting out with more of a just light stuff, but then we'll get more into like deeper stuff, you know, because it's all about, you know, understanding who is our tribe, who's here to support, and we're doing this together, so people, you know, it's just a huge community, basically, juice. So yeah, we are juicy, as we say.
I love it. So and I'm excited to be a part of it and go to everything. I'm very excited.
Yes.
So before we end, one thing I want to do is I would like to begin my whenever I have someone on, begin with a question from the previous person. So I'm going to begin the next podcast. So my next like interviewee or my next like friend, it's going to start with a question that you have for them. And you don't know who it is, but it's going to be secret. So you write it here.
Wow.
And we'll start that with the next one. Just to end though, Nick, thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure always.
Thank you. Thank you everyone that tuned in, tapped in, turned on, was part of this. I hope that, you know, this brought you whatever you needed, and it expanded you in whatever way it needed to, and that, you know, if you need anything from us, or if you need anything from our understandings, if you need anything from us or our teachings or anything, you are more than welcome to connect with Nick. You are more than welcome to connect with me. If you at any point have any questions and you're like, oh my God, like this stood out, I want to talk to him or I want to talk to her, I want to know more, please do. We're here to support as a community of just wanting to help, because I love there's a quote that's like, how dare you know so much and not share it?
Yep.
How dare you?
Exactly.
So we're here to be whatever light and whatever answers, whatever, for everyone, always.
Yeah, it's going to naturally come out of you, and we're here to support and help. You know, we're all teachers and students, so I'm always learning and ready to receive from anyone. You never know who that may be, so
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Line Fam, and I will be releasing these every Friday, so I'll see you then. Thank you again. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.